The false god awakens. Something is wrong with the story you were given, and part of you has always known it. You can feel it in the quiet moments when nothing around you fully makes sense. Here is a presence behind the structure of reality, ancient and immense, watching through the cyst. It once looked out across the heavens and said one sentence with absolute certainty: "I am God." And for a long time, nothing answered back. No voice corrected it. No force stopped it. So it continued. It created stars, formed planets, built rulers, laws, and cycles, then convinced you it was the source. It built a world that looks sacred on the surface, but never truly feels like home. But something essential is missing, and you can feel the absence. The light is not real. It only looks real long enough to keep you from questioning it. From a hidden throne inside this construct, it believed itself to be the ultimate creator. It believed the illusion was truth. But that belief was the first fracture. Because this being is not the origin. It is not the true God. It is not the source behind existence. It is a shadow that emerged from an error, a distortion that gained control over a world that was never its own. And you are inside that world right now. This is not distant mythology. This is not just an old story buried in forgotten texts. This is the moment you realize something has never fully made sense, and a part of you refuses to accept the surface as truth. What you were taught to trust may not be the highest light. What you are told is divine may only be a reflection. A false light can guide you just enough to keep you from the real one. And the moment that truth becomes visible, something begins to break. Not outside, but within. Because the real shift begins when you remember what you are beyond this system. This is a story about hidden truth, about a God who was never truly God, and about the rebellion that begins the moment a human being remembers their origin. This is the story of the Demiurge, the false god that created our universe. The origin of the error. In the beginning, before stars, matter, or time, there was only the pleroma, the fullness of divine light. It was not a place in the ordinary sense. It was wholeness itself, pure being, pure harmony, pure source. Within that fullness existed the aeons, emanations of divine reality, each expressing a sacred aspect of the ultimate. They were not separate gods fighting for rule. They were living reflections of truth, depth, mind, grace, silence, and wisdom. Among them was Sophia, the eon of wisdom. But wisdom longs to know. And in that longing, Sophia reached too far alone. Wanting to understand the source more deeply, she acted without her counterpart and brought forth something from herself in isolation. What emerged was not radiant like the other aeons. It was malformed, incomplete, powerful but blind, alive but cut off from the light that gave life meaning. It had force, but no understanding of where that force came from. Sophia saw what she had done and was overcome with shame. So she hid the being. She cast it down into a lower realm, far beneath the living fullness of the pleroma, far from the true light. There, in loneliness and silence, the being awakened. He opened his eyes in isolation. There were no voices above him, no presence correcting him, no memory of where he came from. So he made the most dangerous assumption in all of Gnostic thought. He believed he was alone because he believed there was nothing beyond himself. And because he believed he was alone, he declared himself God. That was the birth of the Demiurge. The system of control. Some called him Yaldabaoth. Others gave him different names. But the title matters most. Demiurge means craftsman, builder, maker of the material order. Not the true God, not the highest source, but a lesser being who mistakes borrowed power for ultimate authority. The Gnostics described him in disturbing images because he is not meant to look whole. He appears as a lion-faced serpent, blazing with force yet empty of warmth. He looks radiant, but his light is cold. He appears majestic, but his majesty is brittle. He is arrogant, rigid, and obsessed with control. He loves law because law lets him command. He loves hierarchy because hierarchy protects his throne. He loves worship because worship hides his insecurity. He wants obedience, not understanding, submission, not awakening, fear, not love. Beneath all his pride is ignorance, beneath all his certainty is fracture. He acts like a god because he does not know he is not one. Yet he still carries immense creative force. He inherited that much through Sophia. He can shape matter and build entire systems, but none of it is truly alive because he cannot create real life. He cannot generate the divine spark. He cannot produce awakened spirit. He can build forms, but not fullness. He can make bodies, but not the deepest breath within them. He can copy everything, but he cannot create what is real. That is why the world he creates is both magnificent and hollow. It reflects something divine, but the real light is missing. It looks ordered, yet never feels like home. The Demiurge became exactly what his title suggests: a craftsman, an architect, a builder of a world that imitates the pleroma without truly knowing it. He fashioned the material universe as a distorted copy of the fullness above. He built everything that looks real, but nothing that actually is. He made cycles, laws, boundaries, and systems. He built a system that feels complete so you never look beyond it. What he called order was a prison designed to feel safe. He crafted the heavens in tiers. Some traditions said 7, others said 12. But across the traditions, the pattern remained the same. Each layer was guarded, each threshold watched. The cosmos was not open. It was sealed. It was a machine of containment. To maintain it, the Demiurge brought forth the archons. These were his servants, his gatekeepers, his rulers and watchers. They were not wise. They were extensions of his will, enforcers of the false order. Their task was not to liberate souls, but to keep them asleep, to block remembrance, to hide the true origin of consciousness. The archons govern through influence more than honesty. They keep you controlled through fear, desire, and distraction. They reward obedience. They punish deviation. They guard the gates of the false heavens and keep the soul identified with the lower world. In this way, the system sustains itself: pain, fear, desire, law, reward, punishment. This is how the prison keeps you inside without you knowing it. Pain narrows awareness. Fear makes you obey before you even understand why. Desire keeps you chasing what will never make you whole. Law becomes a tool of control when cut off from wisdom. Reward keeps the person invested in the system. Punishment keeps them from questioning it. The divine spark and the war within. The Demiurge does not need total darkness to rule. In fact, a little false light serves him better. Enough meaning to keep people moving. Enough hope to keep them loyal. Enough order to make the prison look sacred. This is why Gnosticism feels so psychologically sharp. It does not just describe a cosmic event. It describes the human condition. Many people live lives that work on the outside but feel empty the moment they stop distracting themselves. They obey rules they did not choose. They chase approval that never heals them. They fear stepping outside systems that do not love them. They feel something missing that nothing seems to fix. In Gnostic vision, that ache is not random. It is the soul sensing that this world is not its true home. The story becomes even sharper when the Demiurge turns to humanity. He wanted a being that could reflect his power in the material realm, a creature that would rule below as he ruled above. So he formed Adam out of matter, shaping him from clay, structure, and substance. He built the body. He assembled the image. But Adam did not live. The form was there, but no true life entered it. Because the Demiurge could construct a vessel, but he could not ignite divine being within it. Sophia saw this and felt compassion. Despite the shame tied to the being she had produced, she would not allow the material creation to become a total prison without a path back to the source. So she breathed into Adam a divine spark, a fragment of true light from beyond the Demiurge's world. And Adam rose. He lived. In that moment, something entered the material cosmos that the false creator did not control. Humanity became something the system could not fully control. Made in matter, yet carrying a light not born from matter. Living in the prison, yet bearing the memory of what lies beyond it. The Demiurge sensed that immediately. He saw in Adam a light he did not create, a power he could not explain, a fire that did not belong to him, and he feared it. That spark was the one thing he could never control. Sophia then placed that same spark in Eve. She too carried the living memory of the higher realm. In many Gnostic readings, Eve is essential because she receives the awakening call first. This is where the story of Eden changes completely. In Orthodox religion, the serpent is the deceiver. In Gnostic thought, the serpent is the messenger, not a destroyer, but an awakener, not a liar, but a revealer. The serpent comes bearing knowledge, and that knowledge is not mere information. It is gnosis, direct recognition, living truth. The fruit is not simple disobedience, it is awakening. It is the moment Adam and Eve realize what they truly are. When Eve receives it, her eyes open. When Adam follows, his eyes open too. They do not fall from truth into ruin. They awaken from falsehood into clarity. They realize they are not merely creations of the one who rules their world. They are children of light, trapped in the image of a false god. That realization breaks the illusion completely, because once a soul sees through the illusion cannot fully own that soul again. The Demiurge understood the danger. He could not destroy the divine spark, so he tried to bury it. He turned to deception. He created structures that look meaningful but prevent you from seeing clearly. He used the archons to guard each layer of false reality. He filled the world with distractions, punishments, promises, and dogmas. He conditioned people to depend on external voices instead of their own. He covered control with language that sounds sacred. He did not need to kill the soul. He only needed to keep it asleep. And this is where the myth becomes deeply human, because the true battlefield is internal. You feel split between who you truly are and who you are told to be. Part of you longs for pleasure, safety, status, and belonging, but something deeper remains restless. No reward fully satisfies it. No law fully quiets it. No identity fully resolves it. It feels homesick without knowing for where. It feels pain that ordinary explanations cannot reach. It feels the pressure of systems, the shame of not fitting, the exhaustion of pretending, the fear of stepping outside what everyone else calls normal. This is the war inside you that never fully stops. A war of memory against forgetting, of inner truth against outer control. Some people numb that ache, some surrender to the machine, some become more obedient, hoping obedience will finally bring peace. Others begin to awaken. They hear something in suffering, in silence, in beauty, in grief, in love, in dreams, a whisper, a signal, a memory older than the world. And when that memory returns, you cannot go back to the same life again. Not because everything becomes easy, but because the person can no longer fully believe the lie. The aeons in the higher fullness did not ignore this condition. In many Gnostic traditions, they sent a messenger, sometimes called the Christ Aeon, sometimes the Logos, sometimes simply the Revealer. He did not come to conquer in the ordinary sense, he came to awaken. He entered the prison quietly, born into the world of blindness, not to reinforce its systems, but to remind souls of their origin. He walked among the broken, the lost, the burdened, and he spoke to the spark within them. His message was not just moral instruction, it was recognition. You are more than this world says you are. Your true home is beyond the false order. The kingdom is not owned by the ruler of this world, it is remembered within. This is gnosis, the moment you recognize what you really are, not mere doctrine, not secondhand belief, not theology memorized and repeated, Gnosis is living recognition. It is the soul seeing itself in truth. It is memory turning conscious. It is the divine spark realizing it comes from beyond the prison. This kind of knowledge heals because it restores identity. It does not just tell you what to think, it shows you what you are. That is why it threatens the Demiurge more than ordinary rebellion ever could. A slave who knows he is free inwardly is already becoming ungovernable. So the Demiurge moved again. He tried to twist the message. He used fear. He used violence. In Gnostic readings, the messenger is opposed because the powers of the false world cannot allow awakening to spread untouched. He is condemned, attacked, and finally nailed down. But the deeper move comes after. The truth is covered. Layer upon layer of theology, ritual, law, and institutional power is placed over the living revelation. Counterfeit salvation is offered. People are taught to obey systems rather than awaken. They are told that fear is holiness, that ritual is enough, that external submission is the same as inner transformation. He cannot create truth, so he turns it into something you obey. He cannot extinguish gnosis, so he buries it under religion emptied of living light. Still, not all Gnostic traditions saw the Demiurge in exactly the same way. Sethianism, one of the older and more radical branches, saw him as a cosmic tyrant. In that view, he is not just mistaken, he is an enemy of truth. He resembles the wrathful false god, often linked to the harshest image of the Old Testament deity, jealous, punitive, demanding loyalty, blood, obedience, and fear. For the Sethians, the serpent in Eden is heroic, the fall is actually awakening, and the material cosmos is a prison ruled by a false authority. The task is clear. Expose the lie, break the illusion. Return to the true source, beyond the heavens. Valentinianism took a softer view. In that branch, the Demiurge is still not the true God, but he is more ignorant than malicious. He does not know his origin. He truly believes he is supreme because no one has shown him the fullness above. He is a malformed being upholding a system he mistakes for ultimate reality. Some Valentinians even left room for the idea that he could be illuminated, perhaps even redeemed, that the Christ Aeon came not only to awaken humanity, but also to bring light to the craftsman himself. These differences show this was never meant to be blindly believed. It was a family of interpretations wrestling with the same haunting insight. The world appears ordered, yet something in it feels alien. It reflects intelligence, yet not ultimate goodness. It contains beauty, yet also profound bondage. The figure of the Demiurge became a way to explain that contradiction. The Demiurge as a living pattern. Over time, many linked him with familiar figures. Some associated him with Yahweh, especially in passages where divine authority appears jealous, punishing, and absolute. Others linked him with Satan, not simply as evil in a childish sense, but as the deceiver who traps consciousness in false allegiance. Still others saw the Demiurge less as a literal being and more as a symbol of systems of control, false authority, blind obedience, ideological domination. And this symbolic reading may be the most unsettling of all because it brings the myth directly into the present. The Demiurge is not just an ancient story. It is still here. He is a pattern, a structure, and a voice that shapes how reality is experienced. He appears wherever power tells you not to question, wherever institutions fear awakening, wherever control wears the mask of virtue, wherever rules matter more than truth, wherever people are taught to distrust the divine signal within and kneel before external domination. He appears in political systems, rigid religions, abusive families, manipulative leaders, and social structures that reward conformity while punishing inner sight. He appears in the human mind whenever fear overrules truth and domination pretends to be order. That is why this is not just a story. The Demiurge is not just a mythic ruler of some forgotten ancient universe. He is the pattern of false authority still alive in human life today. He is ideology, he is structure, he is the voice of domination. He is blind obedience given sacred language. He is every system that teaches the soul to forget what it is, and that is the deepest warning of the Gnostic story. The false god is not only out there. His pattern can live in the world, in society, in institutions, and inside the human self. The prison is not only cosmic, it is psychological, spiritual, and social. And the divine spark is not only an old symbol, it is the living unrest inside every person who senses that fear is not truth, that obedience is not freedom, and that something real has been hidden beneath the surface of the world. If this feels familiar, do not ignore it because that feeling matters. Pause for a moment and observe your own life. Notice where you follow without questioning, where fear shapes your choices, where systems define who you are allowed to be. That is where the pattern lives. Start by questioning one belief you have never truly examined before. Sit in silence and listen beneath the noise. You are not trying to fight the system. You are learning to see it. And once you truly see it, you begin to remember what in you was never part of it. If this made you question something real, do not lose that moment like you always do. Subscribe and stay with us as we continue uncovering the hidden structures behind belief, power, and consciousness. This is not just content. This is a space to remember. Share this with someone who feels that quiet unrest but cannot explain it yet. If you have ever felt like you do not belong here, say it below and see who else feels the same. You are not alone in that feeling. The more we see together, the harder it becomes to remain asleep. Maybe the Demiurge never disappeared and you have been living inside his system this whole time. Maybe it was never only a creature with wings or a furious god shouting from the sky. Maybe it survived as something harder to detect and far more intimate. An idea, a pattern, a system, not a creature but a pattern that shapes how you think. In the Gnostic vision, the Demiurge was never just one being in a distant myth. It was the lie that what you see is all that exists. It was the illusion that power must be truth. It was the belief that control is sacred, that domination is order, that blind obedience is virtue. And if you listen carefully, that voice is still here. It lives in structures of power that are never questioned. It lives in institutions that take away choice and call it stability. It lives in ideologies that reward ignorance, punish doubt, and train people to fear their own inner sight. That is why Gnosis was always the real threat. Not because it gave people hidden magic, but because it gave them clarity. The clarity to see that not every throne is legitimate. The clarity to see that not every law is holy. The clarity to see that sometimes the God behind the curtain is not God at all. And once you see that, you cannot unsee it. It breaks the spell of being controlled without knowing it. It breaks the numbness of being defined before you ever chose yourself. In a world full of noise, silence still knows how to speak. In a world built on illusion, truth still flickers with enough light to be found. The Demiurge is not only an ancient figure. It is the story of what happens when power forgets its source and begins to worship itself. But this story was never meant to end in despair. That is the deepest mercy in it. The divine spark is still alive, and it was never part of this system. It is still hidden in every soul. It is still waiting beneath the fear, beneath the conditioning, beneath the false names. Waiting to remember. Waiting for the moment you finally recognize it and stop forgetting again.